Hey everybody, this is Perch. One of the frequent topics that show up on this channel is that I talk about editorial, in some cases where editorial is making mistakes. A lot of the criticism that you hear online on other channels and other places is usually the result of editorial and not the writers that it typically is aimed at. But the writers are the people who are known, and they tend to also be the people who show up on social media and make comments and other things. Uh, and by the way, if you thought the midterms being over, was going to lead for people being a little less insufferable, nope, not even close. Um, what's so sad about this current state is how people have lost any sense of humor and any ability to even detect a sense of humor. So this guy who apparently, yes, works for Fox, but regardless where he works for, he tweets out the the Las Vegas Raiders lost by 5 points. But with as they're still going to take a couple weeks to finish counting the points, there's a chance that they can win. And that's funny. That is funny. It's a joke about how long Nevada and some of these other states take to count their ballots. It's a joke about the Raiders. It's a joke about, obviously they're not going to have a football team gain extra points weeks later through, polling and other things. So it's just a joke, and it's a funny joke about football and kind of the silliness about it. And it's a joke about how slow these states have been to count. But if you read the replies to this thing, if you look at this post, it's people like you who are a threat to democracy. It's like, Jesus, come on, come on. Tell me you don't understand how voting works without saying you don't understand it. Like, just stop, you dumbass. I mean, just have a sense of humor. Republican or Democrat, don't be this unfunny scold who's gonna just Jesus. The loss of our basic sense of humor is easily one of the worst parts of this entire process has happened. With all the extra conversation, people have completely lost it. But anyway, but I digress quite a bit. Editors are less seen on social media, and so in many cases they don't get as much critique. When really they're the ones who are often making several of the decisions that people comment on and are frustrated by. Now, in fairness to editors, and there is some fairness to go around, their editorial is understaffed by a mile. They're asking them to do too much with too little, and that is definitely a problem. When you do not have enough, basic human mass to do the job properly, there are going to be issues, and there are certainly problems due to shortage of people. If you're looking for a quality result in a comic book, and this is a job that for a portfolio of comics, you're going to put out 60 80 comics. Having 12 comics per one person is absurd. You're going to get a bad result from that. You're absolutely going to get lower quality. You're going to miss things. You're going to get less care about the titles. You're going to get a poor relationship with the creator who's going to not be as good at their job. There's a lot of problems you're going to run into if you have that kind of staffing issues. And DC absolutely does. Marvel mostly does. So that is the disclaimer I'll put at the beginning of this. So a viewer writes in saying, what do editors actually do? We're going to complain about it regularly. Let's see what editors actually are able to accomplish. The mail goes, hey, Perch, I know you often say that editors are overworked and underpaid, and while I can't comment to the pay, are they really overworked? If CB Samolsky offered me a job as an editor, what would be expected of me? From my perspective, my job would be to find creative teams for books I edit, make sure people hit their deadlines, run spell check. You wouldn't need to run spell check. And most importantly, ignore all continuity to prevent whatever shit story they're writing from making sense. Okay, well, let's finish the thing. For me, the hardest part would be ignoring continuity so I don't get in the way of their shitty artistic visions, and I have to be nice to creators instead of cutting a Jim Cornette-style promo every couple days. I'm sure there's more to the job than that because there's always more to a job than what an outsider sees, so I'd be interested to see what I'm missing. So, what does an editor do? Well, an editor is like a portfolio manager. The comics are the portfolio, And the editor is certainly responsible for picking the creative teams and making sure they're going to work together, making sure they're going to hit their deadlines, and understand there's more than just two people. You've got multiple people on this book. You've got to work against some level of budget. Now, how much the budget impacts the editor's day varies from company to company. Sometimes the company doesn't, concern them with stuff like that, but sometimes they do. You need to, from these creative teams, make sure that they are communicating, make sure that their work is going back and forth. And if you think that's just send an email like, "Hey, have you followed up with blah blah blah?" It's not that simple. Often people don't. Several people, big name writers, intentionally duck editorial and don't follow up and respond to things. Bendis and others will, intentionally kind of want to generate their own vision, not listen to editors' reports, and ultimately get them fired. Tom King. And so there's a handful of things that go on in just logistically having people talk to each other and get things going. But the other piece is, you mentioned artistic vision. Keep in mind that editorial frequently, sits together, works together, and in theory, it doesn't really work out this way, are supposed to align with each other to make sure that over in Spider-Man, they're not using Doctor Doom when Doctor Doom's about to appear, say, over in the Hulk. And so there's intent, there's meant to be. If you look at the Jim Shooter era, he was pretty maniacal about making sure that characters were, the continuity was established and people were, aligned. So if a writer writes to the editor and says, "Hey, I would like to use, Bucky for this comic," and then the editor's supposed to, go and make sure that Bucky's not, dead or on another planet or some space god powers or joining a secret team and that's lost in time and space, whatever it happens to be, and says, "Oh yeah, let's do it." There's other concerns too, which is the character, are they trying to intentionally leave the character off the shelf because there's going to be a big event that happens, 6 months from now, and Bucky's going to be at the center of it, so you want to make sure that, he's not getting thrust into a storyline that won't make sense or will overplay out the character before he gets there. So there's a lot of logistics of just how these things work. And the editors frequently go to the writers and ask them to pitch on a story like, "Hey, we're doing a new book starring Carnage. We wanted to have a kind of a different take than what we've done in the past. By the way, there's going to be a big summer event featuring Carnage and the symbiote. So we're going to need something that fits into a nice kind of 9-month kind of timeline where we can do some stories and then, be ready to hand off into that event. And maybe you could build to that event, but we're going to need at least a month buffer." I mean, this all of that kind of stuff. So both sending out the pitches, getting them back, measuring, making sure that everything is going on, shaping this artistic vision. It's not just the creator comes up with the idea and the editor basically figures out how to apologize for it later. The editor and the creator are very much involved together in shaping what that story is going to be. And then once the mechanics start rolling, making sure pages come in, certainly checking them, making sure that, quality control, making sure that bathtubs aren't, positioned in front of doors, making sure that, if there's something about the comic that's an issue, some jokes-driven artist is writing in anti-Jewish slogans onto signs, that the editor's supposed to fix that and correct it. The editor's also supposed to be looking into the overall collection of some of these comics, making sure that they're properly getting to the digital platform of choice. There's often a team that's doing that, but making sure that there's nothing that needs to be changed in order to get to that point. Making sure this stuff is, properly being collected up for the trade. I can go on and on. There's a lot to this job. But, and this is an important but, the job can certainly be done poorly. The editor cannot get back to anybody in any kind of reasonable amount of time. The editor can ignore pages that come in till the last minute and then hastily redraw them if there's a problem. The editor can certainly take all those job duties, those responsibilities, and screw them up by just doing the job incompetently. The job is not protected from incompetence. And if you're lazy and you are, basically ignoring big parts of your job, and there's a million other things, by the way, that I didn't go into. There's a ton of different small tasks that go along there, and everything I just mentioned, keep in mind, is happening monthly. And if you're an editor that has, like, say, 12 books, you're juggling all these things simultaneously. And for what it's worth, and no knock against creators, but you're often working with people who are not the most, not the best at communicating, often not the best with deadlines. And so there's a bunch of issues there. An editor should be looking at the pages that somebody is writing and delivering notes back to the writer to say, hey, here's something you want to do. This is going to build for the dramatic tension of the book. Here's a way you might want to change how the action is happening in a page, because this is going to lead to something that is going to have a little bit more impact for the reader. And I mean, so you've got all these other pieces where in theory the editor should be shaping the title to be better, to be strong, to be, something that's going to sell more, be better, be a longer lasting read. But the editor can certainly show up to, their computer. I was going to say to work, but show up to, the computer, surf Twitter for 4 or 5 hours, maybe answer a couple emails, get tired, go get lunch, catch up with some friends, claim it's networking. I mean, you can easily do that job shitty. And there's plenty of writers out there who will tell you and have complained that, the editors won't get back to them. They're late, just like several editors can complain that writers intentionally won't get back to them and are late and all the rest. So, anyone can do a shit job if they put their mind to it. And certainly there are plenty of people at editorial doing a shit job. So if you're doing your job well, then you are overworked and you are underpaid based on, the current distribution of titles and the money. However, I think many people have solved that problem, or at least, combated that problem by doing as little as humanly possible. And the result are a lot of the books that we read. But anyway, so what does an editor do? All those things and more. And when you hit a good editor, somebody who's really trying to, kind of move the needle and make comics all that they can be, these people are worth their weight in gold, because they're actually, helping shape these titles to be stronger, better, more successful. And that's what the comic companies need. But anyway, there you go. So what did I miss? There are some other things editors do. I'm sure I've forgotten a ton of them as I hastily put out this video with very little quality control. Maybe I need an editor. Anyway, thanks for listening.